Sorry, I didn't print enough handouts. I didn't know how many people were coming. I do have a couple of extras over here if somebody wanted to see what I was talking about and didn't see it during the presentation.
You can put it in the folder.
Okay, great.
So I'm Sally, and this is Tess, and we work at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And our project has been on looking at data visualization and empathy. Can data visualizations elicit empathy, and if so, how, and what are the implications of that, and what are the things that come into it? And so in terms of our process, we split this activity into two things, and I focused on looking at empathy and data visualization, and because we have an interest in our library in graphic medicine and comics, Tess took on the role of looking at empathy in comics and graphic medicine. And in our doing this, we started to see emerging themes that were common to both, and eventually an intersection, which was really interesting to us. And because we were doing comics, we drew a comic. So,
right. So we discovered 10 main intersections that came across in our work. So the first one that came across was the use of narrative and the use of stories to promote empathy both in comics and in data visualization as well. Secondly, it was an interesting how the juxtaposition between like images and text, sometimes like they're not the same, sometimes they're the same, as well as the use of ambivalence or sort of like simplification can leave a lot of room for questions and leave a lot of room for readers to see themselves or to be able to derive a new message from something that has been simplified as opposed to something that's very realistic. And we think that both the data visualization and the comic medium use that to their advantage. And it also allows that the ambivalence and that type of the blanks leave room for interpretation, so that there could be multiple meanings within one visual. So it allows more messages to come across than just one. The other part about text and image that plays in both of these mediums is the idea that it is engaging both the left and right sides of the brain, as well as the creative and the analytical, as well as connecting old knowledge with new knowledge. The idea that images sort of become our pre-existing knowledge and we're adding new knowledge onto that. They also bring disparate subjects together. So things that you might not normally see on the same page or on the same chart are now brought together so that we can see differences and similarities between them, just like comics and data visualization. As well as many of the same principles of design, such as focus and framing and arrows, and are similar across those two mediums, as well as the use of space and how it's not neutral. So things like, and it was very interesting, one of the studies that we came across in our readings was a study done on children and their understanding of space. So if objects are lined up in a certain way, like left to right, which side do or like up or down, which one do children think is more important? And even at a young age, as humans, we're like sort of programmed, to see based on where objects are placed, whether they're more important or not, or like that there's a sequence to them, that they should be in a certain order. So that was very interesting and had applications for both the mediums, as well as the versatility of both of the mediums, so that we have data visualization and comics that range from very artistic to very pared down and very scientific, although I mean art and science, I love the two and they kind of go together, but as well as their ability to put the human into the experience. And for this, I think graphic medicine is an excellent example of how, and the way that we talked about this was humanizing information. So data visualization humanizes data, can humanize data, and comics can humanize information. So you take like an informational topic, like trying to describe how a procedure is going to be, and a comic can then help to add a person's feelings back into that. And through our research, we discovered this new medium called data comics, which brings these two mediums together. So that was our big realization. There's a lot of work being done in it right now. So the use of these principles is going to come in handy for instruction sessions, as well as I think in our discussion about ethics as well. I always tell my students that, like, because we know these principles and how they can help promote empathy in people, it's like a power that can be used for good or evil. So I think that comes up in our discussions. And there's also a couple of different learning activities that we learned about creating data comics that might be useful as mediums for class settings as well.
So going forward, we hope to integrate this into instruction, and also for our own library in particular to kind of pull on the graphic medicine piece as well, and maybe develop some things around that.
Yeah, and since we do have a minute, I will show you. So part of the reason why I thought data visualization and graphic medicine together at first, like that's why I made the connection, was because I noticed that in a few of our graphic medicine novels that we did, that there was already data visualizations happening. So a few that I pulled out were our exographic memoir by Rachel Lindsay, which shows, it's interesting, but the three that I found, they're all based on people's experiences with mental illness and depicting graphically how they felt using different graphic representations. So at Marvel's, depicting mania and depression, and yeah, and then race over the left.